Hello, welcome to Gus McDoll Strategy and Tactics, and thank you to our subscribers. In this series we play through the 16 operations of the German Grand Campaign in Close Combat 3, the Russian Front. Please remember to subscribe, comment, share and like the video, and if you want to show your support with a donation, the links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Battle Briefing. Ruttenkrieg Stalingrad, the fight for Stalin's city. You have a foothold in the factory complex. Now, drive the Bolshevists out for good. Your objective is to secure the entire complex, room by room if necessary. Your command is attached to the 389th Infantry Division. Replenish your command for more close quarter fighting. Submachine guns and flamethrowers are both very effective. You should include some heavy weapons to control the areas around the buildings, which will improve your ability to move. The firepower of a tank or half-track can tip the balance in your favour. The buildings themselves are large enough that you can deploy vehicles inside. Remember your close quarter tactics. Try to avoid moving in the open for any distance. Advance in short, well-covered moves. The area between the foundry and foundry hall will be crucial to your advance. You've made it this far, keep pushing, and victory will surely be yours. We start the operation with the same forces from the last battle. Von McDoll, Command Panzer IV F2. Group Leader, Kommando Behörden 1941. Heavy Infantry, Fallschirmjäger Sturmgrenadier 1942. Heavy Infantry, Sturmgrenadier 1942. Heavy Infantry, Sturmgrenadier 1942. Machine Gun Infantry, Maschinengewehr 42. Machine Gun Infantry, MG34 Early War. Medium Tank, Panzer IIIH. Medium Tank, Panzer IV-D. Heavy Anti-Tank Gun, 8.8 cm Flak 36. Another Heavy Anti-Tank Gun. Anti-Tank Carrier, Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251x10. Another anti-tank carrier with a 3.7 cm pack. And a medium mortar 8 cm Granatwerfer. First, let's refit the command team. Next, let's upgrade the machine gun infantry. Machine gun infantry, Maschinengewehr 42, 1942. Position machine gun teams with a clear field of fire. Use them to suppress the enemy when you attack, defend key positions, or ambush enemy infantry and light vehicles. Move these teams only when necessary. The team is equipped with 1 MP40, 1 MG42, 1 Walther P38 pistol, 1 Mauser rifle, 5 hand grenades, and a smoke grenade. Next, let's upgrade the Panzer III. Medium tank, Panzer IV F2. This medium tank has good mobility and firepower, more armour than Mark IV-D, but still vulnerable to enemy tanks and anti-tank guns. The Mark IV F2's longer-barreled 7.5 cm main gun is effective against all enemy vehicles and most enemy tanks. The team is equipped with 1 Bau MG34, a coaxial MG34, 2 smoke discharges, 5 Walther P38 pistols for the crew, and a 7.5 cm L46 cannon. This seems a better option than the alternatives, the Panzer IIIJ or the Panzer IIIN. Finally, let's refit the 8.8 cm gun. and also refit the Sonderkraftfahrzeug. And that is Kampfgruppe McDowell. Let's examine the terrain and develop a plan. The Red Barricades Gun Factory in the northern part of Stalingrad consists of 3 main buildings in the factory complex. This is where the Soviets make the gun barrels for the T-34. A tank battle in a tank factory, a bit like a snake eating its own tail. I have marked 4 areas. Number 1, the main factory complex and assembly line. The Germans hold the crane room to the west. To their east is the assembly line running the length of the factory building. Parts of the roof have caved in, leaving these areas exposed and vulnerable to mortar fire. To the northeast is the deburring hall. To the east is an office building in ruins with the roof caved in. Good anti-tank ambush terrain. The internal layout of these buildings is unknown, but the factory halls are large enough to drive tanks and half-tracks inside, and there are plenty of machinery spaces in which to set up infantry ambushes. Number 2, the road between the factory buildings. This is an obvious fire lane, control of which determines which side has freedom of movement to cross between buildings. I want to control this fire lane in order to retain the initiative. Number 3, the foundry hall with the machine shop to the southwest. The Germans control the western half. Scattered in the yard outside, waiting installation on hulls, are enough T-34 turrets to put chills up the spine. A laneway separates the foundry hall from the foundry to the east. Number 4, the foundry building. This is where iron and steel is melted and cast into the shape of guns and tank hulls and turrets. Railway lines link the halls in this building. Key terrain is each of the factory buildings. Decisive terrain is the road running between the buildings. Control of the road allows each building to be isolated and defeated in detail. Avenues of approach from the west are either through the assembly line or through the foundry hall. The first Russian course of action is to stay defensive. They could be anywhere in this factory complex, in prepared ambush locations, just waiting for unsuspecting German tanks or infantry. Once the German infantry are fixed in position, the Russian tanks can either roll forward and overrun them, or move to outflank them. The second Russian course of action is a counterattack. Most likely the Russians will seek to control the road. This would allow them to block any advance towards the foundry. Then the Russians will attack to eject the Germans from the assembly hall and crane room. Finally, the Russians will pour overwhelming fire into the Germans bottled up in the foundry hall and encircled, before attacking and overrunning them. Just like the previous battle, my basic plan is to divide the overall factory complex into smaller areas, deny the enemy freedom of movement between the areas, then attack each small area in turn to destroy Russian defenders. So, control of the road is key, both to enabling the Germans to isolate and defeat the Russian defences in detail, and to defeat any Russian counterattack. The 2 8.8cm guns and the 3 tanks will form a support fire line looking down the road. This grouping will give firepower, but also flexibility, as the tanks can move as required. Shadel and 2 infantry squads will take position in the foundry hall and advance only to consolidate that position. Altrichter on the machine gun will provide overwatch and early warning of any Russian moves in the south. In the assembly hall, Nock's squad and Waldemann's machine gun will take up ambush positions to block any Russian advance. The half-tracks will remain in the rear for counter-penetration if necessary. The mortar will remain outside. Once the Russians have been isolated and any counterattacks defeated, I will assess the situation and choose whether to first attack the assembly line to the north or the foundry hall to the east. Once each area is occupied, I'll move to the next. Town and street fighting. The immediate objective of the Germans is to divide the area occupied by the enemy. These areas then are isolated into as many smaller areas as possible in order to deny the enemy freedom of movement. Hauptmann von McDowell looks at the tank factory with deep dread. This is where the Russian T-34 tanks are made, their birthplace. He momentarily feels like one of the heroes of a Wagnerian opera, entering the very lair of the dragon and seeing her many eggs, each of which will hatch a deadly monster. Shuddering with foreboding, he closes his tank turret hatch. I've now moved my troops into position and will execute the plan in real time. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the various courses of action and if you've identified a viable alternative. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more great strategy and tactics content. And so we begin. The support fire line wait with fingers on triggers, ready for anything. Nock and Waldmann are in ambush positions in the assembly line. Shadel and the remaining infantry hold position in the foundry hall. The foundry to the east. The office building. And deburring hall. No sign of Russians. Little brother Altrichter in Overwatch. Waiting. Shadel's infantry platoon advances to consolidate their hold on the foundry hall. Achtung Panzer, T-34. 5 gun sites line up. Hit and destroyed. A T-34 flame tank. One of the dragon's eggs has hatched. Altrichter's machine gun squad moves up in support of the advance. Achtung Panzer, a KV-1S. The dragon herself is awake. The Panzer IV is knocked out. The dragon is protecting her young. and another T-34 flame tank.
В укрытие!
Gottberg and Bass are dead, Hupfauf unconscious. Only Ohlmeyer's gun has eyes on the KV-1S. The others dare not move. Round after round. Desperate, he stabs at the dragon's thick hide with no effect. To the north, Nock's squad spots a Russian anti-tank squad moving up. The mortar engages through the open roof. At last, the KV-1S is destroyed.
Находимся под огнем!
The dragon is defeated in a gout of flame. The tanks now advance to chase down the crew. Shadel speeds up the advance in the foundry hall, exploiting momentum. The gun crews take cover from incoming Russian mortar rounds.
Противник предложил прекращение огня!
The two survivors of Gottberg's tank also take cover. Schickner's half-track now advances towards the assembly hall. With the road under control, as well as the foundry hall, time for the infantry to clear the remainder of the factory complex. Minor victory. The battle ended because the Russians fled the battlefield. The Germans gained control of the area and will advance. German losses were 2 killed, 1 wounded and 1 tank destroyed, the Panzer IV-D. Russian losses were 1 killed, 3 wounded and 3 tanks destroyed. Light casualties for the Russians, but heavy tank losses. The Dragon was defeated in its own den. Let's examine the Kampfgruppe. Oberkanonier Schladitz and Baumann's 8.8cm gun is awarded the War Merit Badge for knocking out a tank. And Gefreiter Ohlmeyer and Oberkanonier Hannemann are both awarded the Assault Badge. Ohlmeyer's third. 1 for each child, he jokes. The 3 tank kills are credited to Schladitz, Ohlmeyer and Hannemann. The Kampfgruppe are okay, except the Panzer 4D. Panzerobergefreiter Gottberg and Oberpanzerschütze are both dead, and Panzerschütze Hupfalf seriously injured. The price of killing the dragon in its lair. Gottberg and Hupfalf joined the Kampfgruppe during the operations in Ukraine, Bassa only recently. The old-timers Thiele and Rudolfer are all that remain of the crew. So, what did we learn? A lesson from the Russians. One trick is to present your adversary with multiple problems simultaneously, thus dividing their attention and their fire. When the Germans were busy with the KV-1S, a second T-34 flame tank appeared at the end of the road. Fortunately, Baumann's 8.8cm gun engaged and destroyed the T-34. But in the meantime, the Panzer 4D was lost, my only casualties of the battle. At the time, I was not even aware of the second T-34 until its destruction was reported. While it did not save the Russians this time around, the principle remains sound. Present your enemy with multiple problems at the same time. Divide their attention and their fire. Or capture their attention and hold it in one direction like the KV, while you attack from another like the T-34. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and donate, and stay tuned for the next episode.